When it comes to bees, Charlie Nicholson knows how to catch a buzz.
That's our queen. Oh, she wants to get out.
Nicholson studies wild bees. And if you're wondering, aren't all bees wild? Nicholson says you can't be serious.
The bee that we all know and love, that honeybee, isn't actually a native wild bee. They can become wild just like we can have wild feral cats. Okay. But honeybees are like chickens or pigs or cows. They're part of our system of animal husbandry. Honeybee is just one bee. We've got over 275 different species of bees in Vermont. And we've seen almost a third of those species on these blueberry farms, which that blows me away. The diversity that we see on blueberry farms.
The blueberry bushes at Adams Berry Farm in Charlotte provide the perfect laboratory for Nicholson's research.
When I step on this farm, I can smell all that sweet blueberry nectar in the air. I immediately just start hearing bumblebees, boom, boom, going from one bush to another. Those are all wild queens that are living in the fields and the forests surrounding this farm. And they're taking this early spring trip every day from their nest to this just bonanza of pollen and nectar on this farm. And they're taking that pollen and nectar back to their nest to provision their young worker bumblebees to be. So when we talk about wild bees, a lot of those aren't necessarily these large colonies. It's a single solitary queen. A lone wolf she is, just moving through this landscape, collecting pollen and nectar to feed her young larvae back at home.
Nicholson received his PhD in natural resources from UVM in 2018. He began his research by asking what factors make a farm bee-friendly.
We looked at, okay, maybe it's the landscape around that farm. Is it surrounded by forests and meadows and wetlands? Or maybe it's what the farmer's doing on the farm. Are they organic or close to it? Or are they spraying lots of pesticides? And so what we found is, surprise, it's both of those things, and they kind of work in sync, right? Such that if you're, a low intense farm, right? You are maybe an organic farm, and you're situated in a landscape with a lot of natural area, we see a lot more abundance and diversity of bees on those farms.
Low-input practices go further than promoting pollinator habitats. As Nicholson learned, an abundant bee population equals a better bottom line for the farmer.
We saw that farms with really active, healthy bee communities had yields that were larger, so their farms were producing more berries, but those berries themselves were consistently larger, and they were ripening a little bit earlier. So you had more consistently large berries getting to market a little bit early, and more of them, because those farms had this healthy, active, lively bee community.
With his work at UVM complete, Nicholson is starting his postdoctoral research at the University of California at Davis. As he leaves the Green Mountains for the California coast, Nicholson brings with him the knowledge of what it means to be a steward of the land.
In addition to having the joy of getting to watch and get to know all these beautiful organisms, these wild bees, dealing with Vermont farmers has been just another joy for me. They are an inspiration. They're up here super early, before the bees are, and they're out here super late. And they care so much about not only their farm, but the landscape around their farm and what their farm means to the other animals that live in these natural areas, but also what their farm means to their neighbors. That it isn't always just, about the bottom line, or it isn't always just about minimizing your impact to nature, right? That you have to balance those things always as a farmer. And I learned that here, and I'll take that with me wherever I go.
From the blueberry blossoms to the bees, and from the farmer to the researcher. This is a bee story that's an A everywhere you look. In Charlotte, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.